pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll open the meeting up to public comment. No public comment? Okay, we have several special presentations this evening. We'll do Dr. Corey and Ulster County BOCES.
Right.
Dr. Corey?
Great, thank you. Thanks, as always, thank you for inviting me to do this update. I'm here for a lot of other reasons too, so appreciate getting to know and work with the Highland Board. This is my annual kind of review of where we are with Ulster BOCES in terms of Highland's level of participation, and then so I'll deal with the student programs first and then get into the financials, because student programs are always a bit more interesting. I gave out a copy of our current enrollments for Ulster BOCES. Start off with CTE, our Career Tech program, which for the board and for the audience is an 11th and 12th grade half-day program. Students are enrolled for the 2-year programs. They either go in the morning or the afternoon, and then the other side of the day they spend their time at Highland High School. Overall, Highland has 68 students out of the 883 students that attend. I should just mention as an aside, the 883 students that attend our CTE program is about 25-26% of the juniors and seniors in Ulster County. We have probably the highest percentage of students in the county attending a CTE program in the state of New York. It's either the highest or the second highest. So, in the state, yes. Yeah, we're very well attended. We have about 25-26% of the juniors and seniors coming through our programs. As you can see from the numbers, the most popular program for Highland students is the cosmetology program, followed by auto tech, and then Cisco music production, and then electrical construction. I'm not sure how many of the board members have come up and visited our CTE program, but I would certainly invite them. Just let Tom know anytime they want, whatever fits into your schedule. It's an evolving program, constantly improving with the latest technology, the latest training, and so I think it's always, I know you come up during the annual meeting in April usually to get dinner from the culinary students, but we're really proud of the program and also all of the facilities that we provide up there. The next set of courses is our GED. You have nobody in the GED program, which is a good thing probably. Okay. Then we have the New Visions courses. These are like honors level career tech courses, and they are for 12th graders only. We have 5 different programs, and you have 8 students enrolled in those programs. And as you can see, when I put the two together in terms of music production up top and then the New Visions audio and music at the bottom, you have 10 students overall. So obviously music and sound production, sound engineering is a very popular thing for Highland students. You also have students in our health program and in our New Visions education. Just a quick overview of the health program. Students spend 2 days in the classroom, 3 days doing rounds in hospitals with doctors. So that during that 12th grade, they are very actively involved, shadowing physicians, shadowing nurses, shadowing x-ray technicians, physical therapists, you name the job, they shadow them in a variety of hospital settings. These are students who are very interested in a health career. It's probably an excellent opportunity for them to get a real first-hand view. The New Visions education program are for students who think they might want to be teachers. They spend, again, classroom time, and then we have an early childhood center that is run by the YWCA. That's their clinical, okay? So those students actually go into the early childhood center and work with the YWCA staff as well as our teachers working with young children. Then moving down to our special ed program, you can see you have 8 students out of 133 presently registered. Again, very similar. Highland has about 8% of the students in the county, and your percentage of students in all of our programs is right around 8%. So it's kind of right on target. The Phoenix Academy is our recently reopened alternative school. Those of you who are on the board for a few years know that we closed our alternative school a couple of years ago. We redesigned it, rebuilt it, and we now opened it up. We called it the Phoenix Academy. Ulster BOCES just recently leased the Anna Devine School, the vacated Anna Devine School, and that's the location of our alternative school right now. At present, you have nobody there, but obviously anytime there's a need for a student to go to an alternative setting, that would be the place that you would go. Hudson Valley Pathways Academy, you have one student enrolled. That's the 6-year program, P-TECH. We're very proud of that program. That program starts in 9th grade, goes through basically 14th grade. Students stay in the program for 6 years, up to 6 years, and at the end they receive their high school diploma and an associate's degree at no cost to their parents. The career tracks, we are linked with local industry as well as Ulster Community College, and it's basically Cisco networking or advanced manufacturing are the 2 career tracks. We're adding in, have added in health informatics, which is kind of the marriage between information systems in the healthcare field. So if you go to a doctor's office today, you know everybody's walking around with tablets or computers. Everything's computerized. Health informatics is the technical side of the healthcare profession, and we're training students in that field. I should also mention, last year we noticed that our first class of P-TECH students, they'd be the equivalent of seniors this year. And so they had some elective space in their program, and we created a Global Studies Academy for which we had 4 or 5 of what would be our P-TECH seniors eligible for. I opened it up to the entire county because we were using P-TECH teachers to teach that course. And I thought it was a pilot. You normally don't offer a course with only 4 students, and I opened it up to the rest of the county at no cost because you were already paying for it. We already paid for the teacher's salary. I think there's one Highland High School student who spends a half a day every day going up to our site at Ulster Community College's campus in Kingston, and he's taking advantage, he or she, I don't remember whether it's a male or female, taking advantage of that really deep dive into global studies, global issues. We're going to do that again this year. Same thing, open it up. Last year we designed it kind of late in the year, and a lot of students had already chosen their schedules. So it was hard to undo a senior schedule, but we're going to open it up again this year for any interested students. The only cost is materials, if we have to buy a textbook or other materials. Other than that, there's no other tuition cost. So overall, you have 85 students out of the 1,153 in our programs, just a little over 7%, again, right on target with the percentage of students you have compared to the rest of the county. And again, just I would invite you, if you'd like to visit any of our programs, the Anna Devine site, the P-TECH program up at SUNY Ulster in Kingston, or the Career Tech School or Special Ed Center up at Port Ewan, just let me know. Or let Susan know. Susan is doing yeoman's work, double duty on 2 boards of education, and I can't thank her enough for all of her time and dedication oftentimes coming from one board meeting to another, 3 or 4 days a week. I think 2 weeks ago we saw each other 4 out of the 5 nights.
We send you one of our best, Dr. Corey.
So,
Dr. Corey?
Yes.
How do you market these programs to our students?
Yeah, it goes, there's 2 ways, and districts really have a lot of control over how we do that. Our staff will come out to the districts, and depending on what the high school principal allows or wants, or how it fits into the schedule, we'll either set up tables in the cafeteria, or we'll visit various classes and talk about our programs. We also oftentimes will bring students who are interested up to the Career Center kind of on a field trip. Yeah, a visitation. Every school in the county does it differently, so I'm not really sure how Highland does it, but we do both? Okay, all right, so there's ample. And there's tons of materials. We bring the guidance counselors up. They're familiar with all of our programs, and they help essentially promote the programs. P-TECH is a little bit different, because there's a lot of outreach to parents, but ultimately the decision to allow a student to go to P-TECH is the local board of education. So when we get an inquiry from a parent, if it's a Highland parent, our principal will alert the principal here that there was an inquiry. in everything that we do. We let them tour, we let them visit, but in every step of the process, we tell them that they have to be working with their home district because of the tuition charge that goes with the BTEC program. So, but we're, those are great programs, and we always are looking to improve our marketing. Financials. You all know that you do services with us. BOCES is all about cooperative services. The state encourages cooperative services by aiding or giving you aid based on your level of participation. Highland's aid ratio is, for the last 2 years, has been 64.2%, which basically means for every dollar of eligible cost that you do with a BOCES, with our BOCES, well, with a BOCES, you get 64 cents back on that dollar the following year. In addition, you all are aware, I think you're all aware, that we're not allowed to keep any surplus, okay? And so any monies that are in any one of our budgets, and we have 132 individual budgets, every COSER or every service area is a separate, distinct budget. If there's any money left in a budget area that you have participated in, it is refunded to you based on your level of participation. That usually comes in January. Business officials like to come to that meeting because I hand them a check. And the aid comes the year after you've kind of earned it. What I did in this chart is move the refund and the aid into the same year that the cost was incurred, so that you can see kind of a straight line. So the last full year, obviously, is 16-17. Just as a note, you can see the trend across the last few years. 3.4, 3.9, 3.8, last year 4.1, and as of December 18th, you're at 3.9 million. So you're really pretty steady in terms of your level of participation in all of our services. So looking at 16-17, which is in the books, you did $4.1 million worth of services with, purchased $4.1 million worth of services from Ulster BOCES. There are certain aid areas that are not eligible for BOCES aid. That would be special ed, ELL, it should read, and transportation. And the reason they're not eligible for BOCES aid is because you get that aid directly back from the state. It doesn't come through the BOCES, it goes directly to the district. So out of that $4.1 million, $1.4 million was not eligible for BOCES aid, but is eligible for special ed or ELL or transportation aid, leaving the amount that was eligible for BOCES aid at $2.7 million. In that particular year, or for that year, your BOCES aid, I think it's now been audited by the state, will be $1,073,000. You also will receive a refund of $468,000. And so basically, between the aid and the refund, you got back $1.5 million worth of basically money coming back to the district. So looking at it a different way, $2.7 million, subtract out $1.5 million that you got back, either through aid or refund, it basically cost you $1.2 million. So 2.7 cost, in fact, the actual impact on the district was $1.2 million. Really just reinforcing the fact that BOCES, it pays to do business with the BOCES, because you do get the incentivized piece back in terms of aid, and also any monies that are excess in a budget area, you get back based on your level of participation. Tomorrow night, Susan has already seen, we have the price list for the upcoming school year. I think there's 133 individual prices, not including the MedHudson Regional Information System. I think 11 were over 2%, and the rest were 2% or under, with a fairly significant number having no price increase. My goal for the last 5 years has been to keep all price increases at the bare minimum, and we succeeded in doing that again. I think it's well over 85 to 90% of our prices are under 2%. And so the board will see that tomorrow. They don't approve those prices, they see them, they comment, they help me change if I need to change some things, and then it's delivered to business officials and assistant superintendents and superintendents. I'll be sharing the price list with superintendents on Thursday when I meet with them. I do meet with the superintendents every month, I was just in Albany for the last 2 days, meeting with the commissioner and her staff. I do that every month, so as you know, I wear 2 hats, not only the the superintendent of the BOCES, but also the commissioner's representative to Ulster County. And so there's a lot of stuff happening in Albany, okay, and everybody's worried about school aid, the impact of the tax legislation coming out of Washington, what that impact will be on school aid. The controller's projection of, I think, a $1.4 billion shortfall, and on and on and on. So we're, as soon as I get information from Commissioner and her staff, I pass it on to the superintendent so that they can pass it on to you. But with that, I'll answer any questions if you might have.
Several months ago, you had a presentation, I think it was Dr. Schenker, on global studies.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you would be willing to have him come
Oh, absolutely.
and do a presentation, because that was just, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a great program. It's
If that would be okay.
Sure, I would encourage any student
Yeah.
to have a participate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just-
It's a deep dive. We trained our teachers this summer on using the great books model of Socratic seminar, because this isn't really a teacher standing in front of a class lecturing and saying this is the way the world is. It's really to throw out issues and problems and let them debate and discuss, research, debate, and discuss with each other to come to an understanding of what the issues are. And the world is so interdependent. It's so small. We don't realize it. I always tell the story, and folks at BOCES might have heard it. I guess it was 12 or 15 years ago, I was one of 25 superintendents in the United States selected to go to China for 2 weeks to work with the Chinese government. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I pretty much didn't travel very much in my life, and so getting on a plane at Newark Airport knowing that I was going to land in Beijing was kind of a big deal for me. And literally, I got on that plane, and I'd been a superintendent and knew what world language, world culture is, the importance. But I got off of the plane 13 hours later in Beijing, and the Chinese government immediately took us to Tiananmen Square. I was an Asian history minor in college. And I got off the bus, and the gentleman behind me was the superintendent from Hartford, Connecticut. And I said, my God. And he said, are you okay? And I said, do you realize that 13 hours ago, we were in Newark Airport waiting to get on this plane? And literally that quick, we're halfway around the world in a city of millions of people. And I said, it just shows you how small the world is. Anything that happens anywhere in the world can affect anybody, because we're literally less than 14 hours away. And then we traveled up. We had to talk to the educational ministry in Jilin City. Jilin City is a city in northeastern China, just off of the Korean border. Okay, it has 11 million people. Okay, in Jilin City, I'd never heard of it, and there were 11 million people. So we're all connected, and that's when we talked about the global issues. I said the world, that was a lot of years ago. The world is even smaller today, and so the students, I would say we're preparing students not for our future, but for their future. And, that's the genesis of that particular program. So I'll absolutely have Dr. Schenker reach out to Tom, and whatever date you want, he'll be here. Other
Dr. Ford,
questions?
can I just ask one question? Yeah. And we can get back about this. I know that compensated or employee benefit account, is next year the year it hits the reduction?
Yes, actually, that's in tomorrow's presentation.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
With the board. We will get through, our projections are, I did a presentation for the superintendent, but also for the BOCES board, talking about the aging staff at Ulster BOCES, as well as the aging staff and certification areas in Ulster County. We have an aging staff. We do projections about when people are going to retire. I'm sure you do the same thing. We've been drawing down that account. We have enough money in that account, it looks like, depending on, we're figuring on about an 11% premium increase in health. If we're right on target, we have enough money in that account to get through March. of next year, the next school year. If it's higher, it'll get through maybe January, I mean, depending on what the premium actually is.
Because we've been budgeting very close to the amount of the refund as the revenue, so we'll need to reduce that in the
Yes,
18-19 year.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And Warren can give you, more specific, we've gotten it broken down by district
Thank
based
you.
on percentages, yeah.
Any questions? Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great holiday.
Yeah,
And I'll
you
see you
too.
all, I'll see you all in the new year. Thank you. Take care.
Yeah.
Right, bye-bye.
Okay, now we have a academic presentation. Pull up Mr. Steve Masson. Oh, okay. Mr. Zimmer.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Masson. Steve Masson, one of our English teachers, is here with two students, one plus Dean, who are going to present some work that they did last month in their AP language composition class. Mr. Masson?
Thank you. Dean feels like he's an adult. We're going to start by passing out some iPads to board members.
Oh,
I think I want this one now.
I do.
It's turn out on nine.
Yeah. No, it's already on.
It's already on? You just got it? Thank you.
Lisa and Irish.
Yeah, thank you.
Using the earpod or an Apple.
Just hit that middle button.
I just want to be
Oh, that much I know.
If there are extras and you guys want to grab one, feel free.
Oh, thank you. I don't know what happened there though. Okay.
All right, I'll get started. Before I get into the presentation, I'm just going to walk you guys through getting to the book. If you, on your main screen, click on iBooks, and you click on the icon that looks just like this one, Learn Pharrell Williams Happy.
iBooks, wait, hold on, look for iBooks.
I think it's like an orange icon, but I could be wrong.
iBooks found it.
Yep, it's on the bottom left.
Okay.
While I'm talking, or while we're talking, if you want to just kind of take a look at the book and look at what's in there, you will not offend me by not looking up. You guys know the song, right?
Oh, yeah.
Can't escape it.
Love that song.
I've listened to it a lot in the past couple of months, I'll just tell you.
So.
So this past summer, I was fortunate enough to both attend and present at the ISTE conference in San Antonio, which is the International Society of Technology and Education. It is a huge conference. There are literally hundreds of workshops going on at any given moment. And I was lucky enough to attend with Carol, who got tickets for the Apple workshops, which were like a hot commodity. There were workshops by everybody else, and then everybody wanted to get into the Apple workshops. And she got tickets for the GarageBand one and for the iPad one. The first one was a little disappointing. The iPad one was just kind of how to use an iPad, tips and tricks. And I was a little disappointed. So for the GarageBand one, I decided to sit kind of at the back, so that if it wasn't good, there were a couple of others that I really wanted to go to, I could sneak out. And I was talking to the guy next to me, and I said, I hope this one's good. The last one was kind of lame. And he said, stick around. I think you'll like this one. Turned out it was the guy who was giving the presentation. As it worked out, it happened to be Pharrell Williams' guitarist. And he had started a thing called Tuniversity with Pharrell. Because he worked so closely with him, he was able to get access to his song Happy and start a thing called Tuniversity. And I'll click on it. Uh-oh, we can't.
Just reload, hit reload.
Didn't you go on that before?
I did on my computer and it worked, but it looks like
Go
it's
on
blocked.
this?
I didn't click on the video. It's okay. I can explain what's in the video. Basically, what Tuniversity is, it's a new approach to teaching music. You get the book, which explains the song and how it was recorded and inspiration behind it, but you also get all of the stems and all of the parts of the song. So you get the drums, you get the vocals, you get the piano, guitar, etc. And with GarageBand, you can reverse engineer the song. You can take it apart and put it back together again. Now, watching the presentation, I was thinking about possible applications for my class, even though this was clearly aimed at younger kids and it was a music program. I thought it would be a great way to talk about analysis, because what analysis is, I'll let him explain, but I thought that we could kind of segue into analysis, which is a big part of the AP language curriculum. Our kids have to also write 2 analysis essays for their student defaults curriculum. And analysis is kind of a tough thing to teach. I thought that using a text like Happy that everybody knows, looking at the parts and the significance and then putting it back together, I thought that would be a really interesting kind of stepping stone into more difficult texts. So I will let Dean talk a little bit about the analysis.
Hello, good evening. So analysis is the detailed examination of elements or structure of something, typically as a basis for discussion or interpretation. So as we began this unit, I was a little wary because the Happy song we all knew, and I was a little confused on how this iPad was going to relate to analysis. However, what I realized, especially now when I was thinking back about the unit, is it was really a great way to dip our toes in the water of analysis for our next upcoming units, where we have to write 2 analysis papers for Composition 2. And what was so great about this application on the iBook was it allowed us to look at all the different parts of the song, if it was the lyrics or the instrument or why the song was created and what was it for, and all the different pieces that go into creating a work of art. So what it showed us as a class is, you don't have to analyze just a book. It can be a poem, it can be a song, it can be a movie, it can be a play, and that's what we're currently working on, discussing, analyzing 2 different plays, Death of a Salesman and Fences. And it allowed us to look deeper into all works of art, furthermore, specifically the song, because at this point we're looking at, okay, what did he do to pick up the beat? Why did he choose this lyrics? Why did he, what was his goal? What was his job? What was he assigned to do? So that was what was great about it, because it got us our toes in the water to discuss and start thinking about how to analyze different pieces of art.
Okay, and then going off of what Dean said, so, I'm trying to walk in that way. Okay, so going off what Dean said, from there we went and went to break down the song, and we got to remix it ourselves. And then so at first, okay, I wasn't excited because I was I don't know how to use GarageBand. I've never touched it before. I don't have a Mac. I don't get it, but okay. So the book breaks it down, and when we went through it, so we were split up in groups, and each person had to remix a song. And no one from my group was really enthusiastic about it, so I was oh god, I'm stuck with this now. This is my project. But as we got more and more into it, I was just playing around with it. I wasn't going for a specific sound, but I was okay, I'm playing around with this, and there's so many classes together that both these people take for music, and a lot of people in my class were skilled with it, but I wasn't. So I ended up having a lot of time in my study halls, and I would play around with it. And the more I played around with it, the more I got used to it, and I was okay, this is really cool. And looking through the book, it teaches you more about it. And we played them for the class, and I was I'm Mr. Max and liked mine a lot. So he told me to play it for the class, and when I did, everyone liked it a lot. And then we ended up FaceTiming one of the guitarists, what was his name?
Brent Paschke. He's the author of the book and the founder of.
So we were fortunate enough, he FaceTimed us, we set up a whole session with him from the classroom, and we got to speak for him. And I was actually able to play my remix for him. And it was so cool to be able to talk to him, get his feedback on it, because I was normally I'm not a confident person, but hearing his feedback on it was so cool, because he knows Pharrell Williams, and so it was just really cool. Yeah, it was really cool to get to know him, and get out of my comfort zone, work with it. And Dean said, I was okay, how is this song by Pharrell Williams gonna help me analyze things? But it was just cool to break it down and go step by step, and it was just cool to work it.
How about we hear your song?
That'd be great.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll play 2. I wish the gentleman from BOCES had stayed, because the second one that I'm going to play is by Gianluca Coutinho, who is a little too shy to come present tonight, but he actually went through that program, so he really brought a lot of expertise to this. But
yeah, you think so.
here comes Jonas.
Because I'm happy.
So this is what the workstation kind of looks like. You can see those are all the different parts of the song.
Because I'm happy. It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. Like I don't care, baby, by the way. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth.
Yeah, that was good. Feedback from the guitarist.
He liked it a lot. He thought it was cool. Like, I remember like the sound kept like breaking up a little bit, but you could just like see him. He was like just like so like into it. Like it was like cool to like have him like smiling. And I'm like, I don't know. It's so cool like how like such a small world and like we got to know him. Like I think that's so cool that Mr. Hassing got to like be in touch with him and stuff like that. Like he knows Pharrell Williams.
We were actually.
Good feedback.
Yeah.
We were the first class that did anything with this book. It's brand new, it just came out, and these were the first kids that he talked to that had actually used it. So I can honestly say that as excited as they were to talk to him, he was more excited to talk to them. Because he had worked a long time and put a lot of effort into this book. So to hear kids actually excited about the process and asking insightful questions and just playing with what he worked really hard on was really gratifying for him. So he was just as excited to hear it from us. Now, apparently all of my kids are a little depressed because they took Happy and made it this sad song. Hopefully this will work. This is Gene with
I think
this.
you can see it.
I plugged it in over here. Yeah, because can we play speaker? Can we play speaker? Should be up. Actually, if I can.
Is this up?
So if I could just ask, when you're working with this, is Miss Potash present, or this is something you guys work on independently with the class?
Well, I didn't want to spend too long on the book, so what we did was we read it in sections, and they reported out on each section. So we broke it down. One group was responsible for chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3.
And are these the chapters, when you say book,
Yes,
this is what you're
that's the book,
referring to?
yeah.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that we talked about was they also did presentations about different aspects of the book, whether it was the music business, the changing nature of publication, and books in general. Like, is this even a book? What is this that we're reading? And one of the most interesting things he said was that they had many different authors work on this book, but it was the young people that could really write it the way that they wanted it written. That they brought in experts that were just kind of too old and out of touch for the kind of project that they were doing. He said the young people were the ones who we ended up going with because they understood the voice that we were going for the book. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Okay, apparently we're not going to get Gia Lucas to work, but I can send it to you. It worked on my computer, I don't understand. But, he did a complete remix with strings and brought the tempo way down, and it almost sounded like the point in the movie Happy where everybody's not happy. Play that over because it's just really kind of sad and longing. Really interesting take on it.
I'd like to hear that. Okay, you can email it to us.
It played on my computer. I'm not sure why it's not playing on this one. But yeah, I'll be happy to send it out to you.
Did you save it down? What if you download it?
We did that before.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Still not playing.
Can you play it from your computer now? Like just, I mean, it won't, the sound won't be as great, but.
Yeah, this might work.
This is cool.
They're really
Totally
good.
analyzing the song.
In a new way, in a new like innovative
Yeah,
technology, and rather than the usual reading a book and just
Right.
looking at it on
Yeah,
paper.
you already
A new
love it.
platform.
Yeah, and then just really look closer at something you love.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
great stuff. Oh, this is cool.
So did you each create your own individual remix, or did some students
We
really get into that and others not as much?
Yeah, definitely, like, others not as much, like, we had different groups, I know my group, like, yeah, we each had, like, presentations, like, from our groups, and then I know for my group personally, no one wanted to do the remix, and, like, it was an assignment for Mr. Masson, so, at first, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do, like, whatever, because I have to hand something in, like, it's no different thing. Don't tell him that, but then I was like, okay, like, I like music a lot, like, I've been in band, like, forever, like, I just, like, I don't know, I love that type of stuff. And, like, I don't know, I got more and more into it, and I was like, wow, this sounds really cool, like, I know how to, like, move this around, make this sound like that. And there was this kid in my class, Josh, and he's really good with music, I think he goes to music or something. And, like, he'd be trying to work on his, I'd be like, Josh, come here, and I'd call him over, and I'd be like, how did you do that? And he would, like, explain it to me. I'd be like, okay, thanks, like, I'm done now. Yeah, and, like, and it would just be, like, cool to, like, move things around. So, yeah, it was basically, like, some people got really into it, others didn't really care, and they just, like, to listen to it, but I guess that's probably different things.
We only had it on 6 computers, so I broke them into groups, and each one,
Yeah.
they had remixers, kids who were responsible for chapters, kids who were doing outside research, and they did their own. And then, not everybody loves this song, so we had one spot was the critic, where you could offer your criticism of the song. Because I knew there'd be pushback, because at this point it's ubiquitous, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
The reason why I asked Jonna to present was I thought that more than anyone, she exemplified somebody who didn't know anything about the program to start with, but then jumped in and just let the chips fall where they may, and put her song out there. And I thought that that was really cool. And I think, you know, more than anything that they learned maybe about music or about this song in particular, it's kids who are willing to jump in on different technological programs, get their feet wet and get their hands dirty and go. Those are kids who are going to be successful because they're not worried about what everybody's thinking. They're just approaching it of, I'm going to do my best, I can learn this thing, I can master this platform, and if they can do it on one, they can do it on any. So, good for you guys.
All right. Well, it's a great display of some of the unique ways we're using technology in the classroom. Thank you.
What I will do is I will download a copy of Gianluca's song. I will send it to Sarah, and she can forward it out to your email chain.
Thank you.
Plug them in, they're low.
Yeah, we will.
Okay, moving on, acceptance of reports. Be it resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent, approve the technology of reviewing the following reports. Board of Education meeting minutes, attendance and enrollment report, November 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2017. Our treasurer's report, the general fund, October 2017. Our school lunch fund, special aid fund, and capital fund. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Tom, second by Sue. Discussion?
Louise, will we do the profit and loss?
For food service, we're working on it, yes. We're gonna do the Bigly format, we've already booked some benefits, so we're in a better position than we were last year, but yeah, it's not quite done yet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How often, once you get there, how often will it be every month?
We can give it to you monthly.
Good job, John.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. the curriculum and instruction. Questions on director's report?
That was a good report, Frank. You're not here.
You know, Maria, I'm shocked that nobody eats your turkey dinner because that was my favorite.
Yeah,
I
I'm
was
surprised at
so
that too.
surprised that you
Yeah.
had such a low tradition. It's just.
I had
not
the
what it
turkey.
used to
I
be.
ate it.
Right?
Very good.
Like, maybe it's just, it feels to be adults like that.
Yeah, maybe it's just an adult thing.
I got a couple questions. First, I didn't see a report from technology. Do you have?
No, sorry, no.
On facilities maintenance, how are we doing at the middle school with these heating issues? Milder weather helps, I guess, but
We're slowly grinding away at solving the problems. We had a boiler go down over the weekend that was repaired, and we used those people to, the vendor to track a couple other issues to rule out that it was a building control system versus a mechanical issue. So that helped today with some issues, but it's an ongoing challenge because one of the issues that started with the whole problem is the new system was designed to have no pneumatics involved, but there are pneumatics, and we've had to have that stuff hooked back up to make sure that those items work. And there's still some issues with a couple of units that don't work yet.
how are heating spaces where the unit ventilator was taken out? Or they're swapping those out real quick?
Well, the unit ventilators were all done in August, and all the new unit ventilators are electronically controlled. Our issues were mostly with older areas where there were unit ventilators or HVAC units that were pneumatically controlled.
Or part of the old system,
Part of the
so
old
to
system,
speak?
the gym, the band room, the chorus room, room 200, locker rooms,
Some large areas, it
cafeterias.
sounds like.
Yes, it's coming.
Let's talk a little bit about where we, so on some of the tech items, I guess the tech room here at the high school, is it? By owner, was that a surprise to us, that some of those items were by owner, or that was always a plan?
No, some of those things were a definite surprise to us, that they were in the project development as it came close to the time that they put it out to bid. Some of those items that were thought to be in the project and whatever became by owner. I think it was, some of it was, I'm going to say it like this, arbitrary cost reduction in the project.
I think they're gonna put whiteboards in there, and we can project at least onto the whiteboard for that, you know.
The whiteboard is one of the cheaper of the solutions, right? When you talk
That
about
was it,
wiring
that-
and some of these other areas. Where
Did the district have discussion with those, deciding on
Louise,
those
what
items
happened?
becoming by owner?
What happened on that issue?
Are we talking about the technology equipment funds?
No,
No.
we're talking about the construction project where things like in the elementary school computer lab, it was decided that data wiring and stuff would be done by the district.
Is this part of the move where we pulled out tech, including security, and what's that other company?
Day automation, no, that's not.
Is this part of
That's
Day
not.
Automation's contract?
No,
I don't believe so.
it is not.
Some of that we were doing through E-rate priority two, right, Carol?
No.
Okay.
I don't really know how it happened that.
So we thought we bought a finished computer lab,
Yes.
and come to find out, when it came to the real stuff that makes it a computer lab, it's by owner.
Well, we had some, I'll give you another example of issues, okay? In the elementary school was, and the design team that worked on the engineering part of it, the elementary school was we'll use offices. We're talking about main offices of school. In the elementary school, there was conduit and there was wiring. It was included in the project.
For that computer lab?
No, for the offices. I'm using this
Okay.
as an example.
All right.
In the middle school, there was conduit, no wiring. In the high school office, there was no conduit, no wiring. So we had to step in and,
So those are all change order additions?
no, we actually stepped in and filled those
You wired
voids.
it?
in other ways, yes. Some of it was done by some contracts, some of it is being done by us, some of it is not yet done.
So because I'm not familiar with it, this is obviously my first capital project, where does that come in? Is that architect decision?
Probably is,
that-
right? It's in the architecture drawing.
Is that a collaboration between architect and construction manager to pull that?
I will
pull
tell
that
you,
out?
you could probably spend all evening and still not know, but I would ask that this be reviewed by our support services committee, that this is actually an agenda item on their next meeting for review. Because there's a lot of documents to check, and there's a lot of conversations to be had,
Have they ever been had?
but we fell short somewhere. And I think I want to know where that.
But I'm not sure if Mr. Miller might have an answer to that. Is that?
Well, some of it was based on some, I think some periphery conversations of which were assumed to be taken from discussion, and they were put into fact that it was going to be by owner because so-and-so said we would do this, okay? Well, because we said we were going to do this in a certain space didn't mean we were going to do it across the board. And it got passed across the board by the architects as a cost-cutting measure, I think.
So this could have been a credit that we said yes to, money coming back, and this might have been a scope of work that is part of that credit?
It's not really a credit, it was a reduction in scope of work to curtail the cost of the project.
Value engineering deduct before the bids went out.
Yes.
And you weren't aware that it was taken that way?
So we
I
need
was
to have a
extremely
support services
surprised.
meeting to develop a list of what's in this pool of items.
Carol, and when we got into moving offices back in there, Carol and I were jumping through hoops to make sure that we had data in the offices so the offices could function.
So like the computer lab's got the power in the floor, they didn't get Ethernet in the floor. So we had to scramble and get laptop carts in there, and it's not that it doesn't work, it's just lack of flexibility for future is where we're at. So and also the boards, any smart board items didn't get put in. So we are working on some options right now, trying to get some people to look at what they want, that kind of thing.
So I guess we can have a discussion all day of where that lies, but I think in the end, my concern is really, listen, we've talked that in the future we need to not continue with capital projects, but continue with what our buildings need and move forward in that respect. What are our lessons learned here? And where did that process fall down so that we can make sure that when we have computer lab, we're moving everything in and it's a finished computer lab. And I think that's just, for me, the most important part of the support services committee to look at is what's the lesson learned and where did we fall down in that next time we really need to focus.
Well, I don't necessarily think that the support service would have a handle on that, because that's done collaboratively with the architect, construction manager, engineers, maybe with some conversation with the owners. We would not be privy to that until after the fact. Maybe now we can find out how it was generated, but it's
So
not
who
going to
would
solve
be
it.
asking the question?
Well, in this case, pretty much based on the timelines we were dealing with, it was in the bid documents before construction manager was even involved in it. And that's when we started running back and trying to chase down, because at one point in time, we had had discussions with principals and everybody with computer lab layouts and furnitures and things like that we thought were going to be in there, and when it all came down to it, it was by owner, and then we had to jump through hoops as far as obtaining furniture and finishing wiring, putting in Wi-Fi, whatever we did so we could complete
So
the
you could
project.
use the room.
So we could use the room, yeah, we're still not 100% there.
So who's supposed to look over the bids before they go out? The architect only?
No,
They don't let the owner know what's
construction
taken
manager
in,
does all
taken
of that.
out?
They do the estimates.
Well, at the time that this was done, the timeline crunch between the time that they were going out to bid and the time the construction manager came on board was nowhere near enough time to review or change, because the date had already been set to go out to bid. We didn't even see the final bid documents before it went out to bid. I never saw a final document. I would never have had time to go through it, or anybody else would at that point in time, to find out what was missing.
Wasn't that 1B? Computer lab was 1B, which gave the CN plenty of time to review. I believe the computer lab was 1B, which was
A lot of that was-
March of 17.
Yeah, but a lot of that was already, it was all pretty much finalized.
because it was considered, it was in the final dollar amount that was leading.
Yeah, no, I know that.
So I think to answer the trustee's question, it's the architect.
Well, and
And it's
questions,
review of the bids before they go out.
Yes.
and any question that gets asked unfortunately falls back on errors and omissions.
Yes.
You know, there's,
Saying what's been taken out. Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, if they forgot to do something,
It's just gonna delay taking and using the space like
Like we want to.
well, we've done as much as we can to avoid that, so we don't have those issues.
you've got the money. You've got, and we'll talk about a little bit about that under whether it's old business or there is money in the tech line items.
There are some items that we are going to be demoing. Since we have some money, we have a committee kind of together. We're gonna bring some people together and demo some new stuff before we buy stuff now. Since it's not there, we might as well
Right.
figure out exactly what's going to be the most useful. Speaking to Gloria in the elementary school, we have a good idea handle on the elementary school. The high school year, you know, I have a vision, I think everyone has it, and what's gonna be the most practical, and I think we should be able to figure it out.
I've been thinking a little bit about that. The last I looked at it was about 100K. That's across a few line items. And usually, so like, in a few short months, we're gonna be talking about the 18-19 school year budget, right? We're gonna develop
Right.
that budget. And usually when we budget those items, there's a discussion with kind of what we wanna use the money for.
Right.
So, I'm not extremely happy with that money is there to serve students. And by the time the committee meets and you actually order the stuff, you're in the summer. So
Right.
we miss a year of what that money could have meant for kids. I also think that the piecemeal approach of what the buildings, would like to do, or rather than have this haphazard approach, I think I do want to engage the board and central admin in possibly providing a framework for the district, and then the buildings could aspire towards that.
I totally agree with that, I do. And one of the
I
problems
appreciate that.
always comes in with each building needs their own thing, what happens throughout the year, lack of staffing to get stuff deployed is huge. So we do have a problem with that. And I think right now, we're actually at a good place because between textbook use, that's comes out of the equipment money, that kind of thing, we actually might be able to finish our labs now. So it's actually, in hindsight, at least we might have something to get some boards into the labs. So this year, I'm kind of thinking that's a gift. It's a gift horse, kind of thing, because we still have stuff to deploy, that kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
There are initiatives going on in the tech world too that we should talk about, and stuff that I've actually kind of thought about and planned. We've had some transition in the building, and I think we're all kind of on board on what devices need to go. I talked to another principal about maybe moving some devices out. Maybe the high school doesn't really need iPads anymore. Purpose, they're really useful in the elementary school, maybe we shuffle stuff around.
Rather than get the buildings caught in the proverbial cycle of Chromebook versus iPad versus, perhaps in looking at what districts in the 4 counties are doing, and we're talking about districts that are performing high-performing school districts, what those frameworks look like, and then with central and a board, kind of communicate in a broad sense what we'd like to see, and that would provide a little more structure for these committees and all these things to talk.
Because it's not necessarily devices it's the tech integration piece. So we have thousands of devices.
And I'll leave that to the educators that are gonna work in those spaces.
Right.
But because the construct is really tied to dollars and cents, and not just what you could do one time with a Smarter School bond, but this is something that the board will have to sustain, the community will have to sustain through budget. I think there's gotta be a little bit more central discussion on that.
Well, one more piece of that is that we have to realize that a lot of the things that I would like to have and whatever that were thought processes in the design portion of some of these spaces happened 4 years plus ago. So looking at whether that is the appropriate device or whatever at this point in time with some of the things that are coming out quickly is part of what, because of the delay in the project of looking and going back and say, are we putting up a whiteboard, or are we putting up a touch TV or that kind of stuff as things move on?
Right. The device will be wireless, and you will need a 10 gigabit backbone minimum.
Right.
So you can take that back and back map that way. 10 gigabyte because CBT, we're in the age of computer-based testing.
Right.
And that is gonna be the spec.
Right. So, I agree, it's device agnostic is your infrastructure, device agnostic, and the spaces have to be flexible, exactly, for future growth, whatever we need. I totally agree with that, and I think that we're in maybe a better place than you
I didn't
think.
say device agnostic, I just simply said the device would be wireless.
Right.
So we're having these conversations and we'll be, having increased communication with the board and the public regarding kind of the global vision for the district for technology.
Okay, any other questions for director's reports?
Yes, I'd like to talk a little bit further about the athletic report, although I think this is great. I don't think we've received such a comprehensive report. However, it's telling me something when I see only 2 teams had a winning season, and I am concerned, and maybe if you could just ask Frank, is there a general malaise with the coaches, or is there a morale issue? Just to see this level of losses, it's concerning. And I guess, Dean, maybe if I could ask you, since we have so many teams that are in losing seasons, do you ever hear any discussions going back and forth?
I mean, I don't think they're happy that they're losing, but I think there might be issues with morale and coaches and concerns in that aspect of, are they feeling supported by other teammates and their coaches, and I think that's something to look at and something to discuss. And not that students should, I think students should somehow have an input or voice in that process. I don't know how that might be, but a lot of, I think you work better with people that work well with you, and if you get along and you work together and there's positive energy rather than negative energy flowing on the team, I think they will win more. And it's not maybe just about winning, about just team bonding and having a good time throughout your high school experience. So even if they lose, as long as I think they have that supportive teammates and supportive coaches, and they have that good team family bond, I think that's what's really important. And I don't know if that's in every, I'm not a big sport person, so I.
Yeah, see, I'm not a sports person
I have to be
either.
honest with that,
I
I don't play any sports personally, but
Right.
I do see with my friends that you have that. But I see also a lot that they all have those team bonds and team dinners and are close with their coaches and, yeah. But I think there's a discussion. I think that students should have some input if it's time of practice, if it's how long practices are, if it's those, I hear those discussions, like, oh, I had 3-hour practice, which probably, so.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Well, thanks. Could be some sort of, maybe a meeting could be held, or?
Well, I think we're gonna be discussing this
Yeah,
a
a lot
little
of
bit.
that kind of starts to feel like personnel,
Yeah, yeah.
so.
Yeah, no, it's,
We can have further discussions.
No. quite right, that's,
Absolutely.
yeah, it could just be brought up. Okay.
Anyone else on director's reports? Okay, our principal's report, Joel.
Okay, I just want to update the board. You know that every year we adopt families for both Thanksgiving and for Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. This year we adopted 22 families at the elementary school. It looks like Santa's workshop down the main hallway of the building. There's the faculty and the staff, the PTA got involved this year. Really, the community came out and supported these families, and it's very nice to see. So just a public acknowledgement of everyone in the community, but especially my faculty, my staff, my PTA. They did a great job. Just an update, building project, I had mentioned that we were waiting for the PA system to be moved. That got done since I wrote the report on Thursday. So that got moved actually probably about an hour after I wrote this. I came in on that snow day, did the report, and it was done that afternoon. So that's nice. We still are waiting for window treatments in the office, and I'm told those are coming shortly. And then just another public acknowledgement to the town of Lloyd for coming in and working with our 4th and 5th grade, talking about healthy choices. And I know they're going to be, they were also in 6th grade, and I think they're going into 7th and 8th grade after the holiday break. So it was nice to see them in and around the building for 2 weeks, and the kids always love to see the guys come in. So thank them for that. If you have any questions?
Joel, under your main office, is it now functioning as a secured vestibule?
Well, there's no buzzer system. So
part of the automation.
Yeah, and then there's I don't know how much we're talking about the lock system with the camera on. There's something we're working on there that I don't know that we really want to put on the tape.
That's all I did. But I mean, as visitors come into the building, are they just still accessing through the
They're still
main, or
being let in and checked by our security guard.
but not through the main office?
The process is
They're
the same. Is the process different than when you started the school year?
No. They are still entering through the main doors. They're not all funneling through the office, but I don't think it was ever considered that they would all funnel through the office, especially this week. We have hundreds of parents coming to the building. They're not all going to funnel through the main office. So,
But outside of a holiday on a normal school day,
we don't have the buzzer system yet. So I think that once the buzzer system is there, I think that door will. But
they need day rotation.
It's functioning well. The office looks great. The secretaries have really worked hard to make the outside area. They brought it together very quickly. Kathleen's office looks nicer than mine. Kathleen has an eye
chose better
for
colors, probably.
She has an eye for fashion, and she has her lamps, and it's very, decorated nicely. And mine is still a white wall, but it's clean. I have a secure safe in the building, which I'm not having to go to the middle school to get exams yet, but I will love that when that comes around. So thank you for getting that into the office. Anything else?
Kathleen, can you help him out?
We'll get there.
I'm trying.
It's been a very busy couple of weeks, as it always is. So if anyone's around this week, I invite you to the sing-along on Friday. That happens every period throughout the day. The middle school will be coming down to sing to the kids. The high school will be coming down. It's a fun day. Lots of excitement, energy.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Dan?
Good evening, everyone. Couple things to add real quickly. Our food drive ends tomorrow. That's through our student council collecting food. It will be donated to the local pantry. And our PBIS team has put together the 12 Days of School Spirit. Today was Misfit Toy Day. It was kind of interesting to see the kids dressed up differently. And it's been going on. Yesterday was PJ Day. Superintendent came down and put his PJs on for us. No, I'm kidding. He came to a faculty meeting and teachers were dressed in PJs. It was fun. And our holiday play comes up on Friday. The title of it is something like The Beard Who Stole Winter Break. That probably leads you to who the main character may be. I think my beard ends up growing I'm not sure how that's gonna work, but we'll see, it should be fun, come and visit, it's always a good time. Yeah, something like that. One other thing I'd like to add, today I'm standing where I always do the dismissal, and 3 students run up to me and they say, and one says, I'm in the after school academy, can these 2 join? And I'm like, you wanna do that today? Do your parents know you're willing to stay till 4:45? They're like, yeah, we want to, I'm like, we're up to like 21 kids. They just keep, coming, and it's,
That's wonderful.
and their work is displayed in the hallways, and as soon as they get in there, they're running out and doing things in the building, measuring things, and measuring how fast they run up and down the hallways, and taking surveys. So they're looking at it a different way. What we're really moving towards overall in education, it's integrated, math and ELA, it's going really well, the kids are really excited, they're buying it. Where that leads to when they take a state test, I don't have the answer to that. But we have today, there was a session today and there's one on Thursday, and then they start up again at the end of February and run through just prior to the state test. So, it's been a great experience for a lot of kids. So, all right. Any questions?
Good evening again. I have 2 additions to the high school principal's board report. On December 5th, the Interact Club had a day of service learning to get students to invest in the betterment of our community. This year, students built Santa's Workshop, complete with the North Pole, a flight map, Naughty or Nice coal station, and Rudolph's Reindeer Stable, all for the town's Light Up the Hamlet event. That was on December 7th. To show its appreciation, the town supervisor's office bought a pizza for all students involved who helped out. Also, the French Club. Tomorrow, the French Club will go on their annual trip to see a Broadway play. They're going tomorrow. They will see Beautiful, the Carole King story. The club held 2 fundraisers early in the year to cover the cost of the train and tickets to the show. As a conclusion to their culturally enriched day, they'll visit the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. That will be nice. Also, Thursday night at 6 p.m. is a Christmas Chaos. It's this year's school play that will be in the auditorium, directed by Ms. Petrosov before she leaves for maternity leave. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Director of Instructional Data and Assessment, Jody.
I always feel like I have nothing interesting to tell you. I try to give you some interesting statistics when I submit my board report. I've been very busy. I have a lot of data rolling in, a lot of benchmarks. The STAR tests have been done. Been going to conferences. I spent Wednesday all day at a conference with the math teachers about creating common assessments. So we're learning a lot about creating better assessments for the students and working on refining the benchmarks that have been made. So it's great. I have to say that I've never worked in a school where there's so much Christmas spirit in this high school. It's amazing. These kids decorate it. It's crazy. So it's a really beautiful place to work in the holiday season. But that's about it.
So when is so you did a pre-test at some point this year?
We did some pre-testing, but what we found out is that the growth wasn't as important as looking at the straight scores, because we were using the percentage of the students who passed at the end, and because they come into the grade not knowing anything. So the pre-test, most of the teachers did give a pre-test, and they've asked me to put the data in, but it doesn't
Students
seem
come
relevant
into the grade not knowing anything?
about what's coming this year. They haven't been taught the math yet, so most of them don't do well. So really that, we didn't see that as important as, just those regular benchmarks showing what they've learned and that they've accomplished it, that they've learned it.
How many benchmark tests in math have been given to date?
Only one. The next one will come up in late January, and then there'll be one
And then
in
you're going to
May.
look at the growth from that one to the
Yes.
late January?
And then, of course, at the end of the year to see the growth and how many students learned what was being taught over the year.
Are students who are taking the January Regents exams part of that process?
In the middle school, no. They were not given the benchmarks exams.
And you're not, so before you mentioned the high school, are we working on benchmarks
We are
at
not.
high school?
I have not started, well, I'm letting Bill kind of get.
But not as far as you're concerned?
Not yet. I haven't worked
So
with
your
them yet.
math benchmark work, is that
Elementary
K-8?
and middle. Yes, K-8, with the exception of the 8th grade regents. Those students are not taking the benchmarks.
And the benchmark is scheduled for January?
It was November, December, then it'll be January, February, and then April, May, and then the very last one will be about the time that they take their state exams.
So did all K-8 students take a math benchmark?
Except for the regents' 8th grade, yes.
Okay,
There's 4 benchmarks in the year.
okay,
Well,
So they've
3
taken
plus
the
the
first
final.
one.
okay.
We spread them out.
So after the second one, that becomes very meaningful for you.
Yes, they're all.
That's not a convincing yes, so
They're
let's talk
all
about that.
meaningful. I mean, each benchmark is showing us that the teachers are teaching the curriculum on schedule, the students are learning it on schedule, and that they're passing that benchmark. And then they start the next benchmark. So really, each benchmark is important in its own right for that purpose. And then the last benchmark is extremely important because that one tests the whole year. So that last benchmark goes back and it's cumulative. So then we see everything the students have learned for the entire year, how much they've retained. So the last one's really important. The 3 before that really just tell us that the teachers are teaching to the curriculum on schedule, that the students are understanding what they're being taught and mastering it. So until they get to that end when they have to do the whole thing.
And it allows us to break down and look at what students are struggling with.
Right.
And, what might need more time, what might, if there are some teachers who, their students scored really well in a particular standard, that allows them to share strategies then within a grade level. We also have the data from last year, so we can do some comparison from year to year.
So basically, Dr. Necrell is having those discussions with teachers at each of those grade levels?
Yes.
K-8 at this time?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the work that we're doing with BOCES is Dr. I think it's Jen Barjoli. They brought her in so that we could look even more closely at, because we created benchmarks using state exam questions, using the standards. This allows us to have an expert in assessment come and have us review and look through and see
best practices,
areas that we might need to keep it up, or what's not quite as rigorous, or those kinds of things.
Right. And the teachers are attending. Each school has, well, almost the entire math team is attending for the middle school, and then there's a representative from each team in the elementary school attending as well.
Each grade level.
Attending what?
The common assessments. It's a 3-day series throughout the year at BOCES. So we will be refining and learning how to write better questions, and we've learned quite a bit already, actually, in just one day. So it's really interesting.
Any other questions? Thank you. Director of Pupil Personnel Services, Patrick.
We were supposed to have our first special ed cabinet meeting last Thursday, but the snow changed that one, so we're hopeful to reschedule that for early January. Yesterday we met with all of our special education coordinators and CSE chairs as we plan for annual reviews, and we're already looking for next year. So we get together and try to look at dates, and we try to push them as far back in the year as we can, so as we plan for next year, because we're writing plans for students that are starting in September. So, as it gets moved up each year, because they're supposed to be held within 365 days, each year that gets moved up a little bit, it's hard to plan for September in February. So, with staying within regulations, we're trying to push them back as far as possible so we can have the best plans possible for our students when they enter in September. Our PBIS team, we met as a district-wide team a couple weeks ago, and we share ideas and share what's going on in each of our buildings. And one of our main goals for this year is to improve our communication and try to align our activities a little bit more across the district. So for example, this week is Spirit Week in all of our schools, but they're all a little bit different. And we work closely with our transportation department with this too, is because a lot of our drivers like to get into the Spirit Days as our students first get on the bus in the morning. So trying to align them across as a district, so for example, if tomorrow is Blue and Gold Day, we want Blue and Gold Day K-12, not just Blue and Gold Day in 6 through 8 tomorrow, and it's Thursday through K through 5. So we're trying to improve our communication across the board that way.
Questions for Patrick? Thank you. Okay, moving forward, approval on Committee on Special Education minutes. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendation of the Committee on Special Education according to the minutes of the CSE meetings of November 15th, 20th, along with the month of December 6th, 8th, and 11th. CSE, the amendment agreement, no meetings, November 14th, 15th, and 16th. And the CSE meeting, no meeting transfer in, there was none to report. Have a motion, please? Motion by Deb, second by Tom. Discussion? Nothing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Approval on Committee on Preschool Special Education. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendation of the Committee on Preschool Special Education according to the minutes of CPSE meetings of November 22nd, 29th, along with the month of December 6th and 13th. CPSE, no meeting transfer in, there is no CPSE meeting, no meeting amendments to report. This committee authorized the arrangements for such student special education program to serve. On the motion, please. Motion by Tom, second by Deb. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Under personnel, the board willing to take personnel as a block except for on our addendum. I will handle that separately. So it would be A through J with the exception of I.
I'm gonna have some questions about Jay.
Okay. We'll do A through H and hold I and J separate.
That's, no, it wasn't. Oh. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that was talking about it was prior to my run.
Okay.
Yeah, we can bring up this stuff later.
Yeah, fair enough.
Do you want to include that, or you want to go into object to your?
No, I'm not gonna.
All right,
go
we'll
into
include the
another.
J in the block. So I need a motion to accept personnel from A through J with the exception of I. Motion by Heather, second by Tom. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Mr. President, just wanted to acknowledge that Michael Schwartz is here. He's the English teacher, lead placement at high school. So
Welcome.
welcome and thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, we appreciate it very much. Congratulations.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's good stuff. Welcome aboard.
Okay, under I, be resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent, approves the following appointment as presented to the board at this meeting. Ryan Judge, position assistant principal, high school, HAA salary $94,500, effective date on or about January 22nd, 2018, probationary period January 22nd, 2018 through January 21st, 2022. Tenure area assistant principal, and the purpose to replace Bill Zimmer who will receive a promotion. Any motion? Motion by Deb, second by Sue.
Good.
Before we make the appointment, I'd like the interim superintendent to recognize Ryan Judge.
Yes, Ryan Judge is here. We recognize Ryan Judge and welcome Ryan Judge to the Highland family. Looking forward to working with you as part of our administrative team and really our family here at Highland. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much.
Now we'll make it official. All those, make it official. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Congratulations. Okay, student rep, Dean.
Good evening. Some sports updates is today, I believe, was the girls varsity basketball and the wrestling team's first home games for both events. The wrestling team has already won some matches, and the basketball girls varsity team, I'm excited to see how well they do this year, as they did very well last year. Some high school updates is student council decked the halls and definitely brought the holiday spirit with all types of decorations, from streamers to snowman to Christmas trees. In addition, our Spirit Week is in the midst, and tomorrow is I Woke Up Like This Wednesday for Pajama Day. My idea. Well, we stole from Newburgh. Maldi UN received their Bosman assignments for their conference in February, so we have a couple of really cool and exciting different committee assignments. We have one student will be on the College of Cardinals and will be a priest. I'll be on the PTA committee discussing bake sales and extracurricular activities. And then another student, one other example is we have an international coffee organization. So there's a lot of different committees, and it's going to be exciting talks throughout that conference in February. In addition, we had successful holiday concerts for the middle school and high school band and choir. An exciting presentation that was presented by a man from BOCES was Vex Robotics that Carol put together, and it was really cool to go and see as this man showed us different types of robots and how to program them and how software is used in the process of making them move around and do different movements. And it was cool to see through technology and programming and students being able to have that ability to just learn about that and STEM technology and all of that great stuff. Interact had a successful night at the Hamlet. Interact also had a few students write letters to veterans, we'll send out for the Christmas season. We'll also be participating in some Christmas caroling tomorrow in town. In addition, our holiday food drive competition is coming to an end tomorrow, and Interact members will box the items at the Methodist Church on Friday the 22nd. Also, the Middle School Student Council has begun and had a meeting, and I was lucky to attend, and it was really cool to see a lot of students were participating, got involved. There was over at least 20 students there, ready and excited to be in their Middle School Student Council, so that was exciting, and I was very happy I had the ability to go there and meet with them and let them know I'm here if they would have any concerns or thoughts. Some field trips. Our club went to the Metropolitan Museum last Friday, as well as we had a fun Canada trip to Montreal. Many students came back with some good stories. And then the French club is seeing Beautiful tomorrow, and that's very exciting. And then some upcoming events that we have is the theater will present the Christmas Chaos on December 21st at 6 p.m. in the auditorium. The SAD Club is selling holiday donut grams to pass out to students. And then the last piece was have a wonderful Christmas break and holiday time.
You too.
Thank you.
Any questions for Dean?
Your community involvement is phenomenal.
I like the fact that you go to middle school, you make yourself known.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Business and operations, donation, Highland Music Booster. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon a recommendation of the interim superintendent, gladly accepts the donation of the ukulele bag at the value of $630 from the Highland Music Boosters. May I have a motion, please? Motion by Heather, second. Discussion?
I'd just like to thank the Music Boosters for their generous donation.
You sent it in a letter, thank you.
Yes, I will.
And And this supplements, they had written a grant about a year ago for that, got about 10 ukuleles or something. This supplements that so that they have a whole class set.
Oh.
So that they can do work.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. We will send a thank you to them. Construction bid alternate awards, phase 2, roofing alternates. This is what we tabled at our last meeting. And I believe everyone's got the backup from the recommendation from support service and Louise recommending that we move forward with these alternate bids. Be it resolved that based upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools, the Board of Education award the following roof bid alternates. The elementary school, key construction, $219,584. The high school, Doptel construction, $195,945. And for the middle school, Optimus construction, $476,675. Can I have a motion, please?
Okay.
Motion by Sue, second by Tom. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Budget transfer be it resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent, approves the following budget transfers for the 2017-18 school year as presented to the board. Budget transfer number 4939, $33,015.65. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Mike, second by Deb. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Non-resident tuition rates be resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent, approves the authorization of 2017-18 estimated non-resident tuition rates. Grades K to 6, regular education $9,006, special education $38,619. For grades 7 through 12, regular education $13,114, special education $42,727. Can I have a motion, please? Moved by Sue, second by
Second.
Heather. All discussion?
One question, is this our per student rate?
No, well, this is the Seneca Falls formula that the SED sets after they they review our audit. So if we have a non-resident student that comes in, this is what we charge. It's not the same calculation as the one that's done on all the budget documents. And one of the reasons for that is because of the breakdown. Pretty sure.
Because of the K 6, 7, 12?
Yeah. I suspect this is
Because in
gonna
the
change.
other method, we just take what, the budget divided by the number-ish, maybe
Yeah.
minus administrative or op costs.
The other thing is this is estimated right now. What you probably notice year after year is the estimated is based on the total budget. We never spend the total budget because we build in a portion to return in the next year's taxes. So when you see the actuals, they're always less.
Thank you.
So how does that work? If we have a non-resident coming in, then we refund it.
We do.
And this we do every year, I just don't recall seeing.
We do.
Thank you.
Excited, can you tell from our response?
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? So carried. Now we're interim superintendent report.
Yes, so Trooper Craig Vetter from Troop F, he met with the high school and elementary school staff, faculty and staff at their meetings this month. Very interesting, talking about signs and symptoms of drug use. So this is a presentation for adults so that they can see what to look for. And, because in the drug world, they work very hard at taking the ordinary and making it unique and kind of hiding things in plain sight. So it was very eye-opening for me, certainly for a lot of the staff. He will be going to the middle school in January, and presently having the conversations. I would like Trooper Berta to come back and meet with as many of the custodial staff, food service workers, and the bus drivers. So I'm hoping to maybe find a day and time or times when we can have a couple of different presentations to get as many of those people seeing this presentation also. It's very effective and very worth the time. Tomorrow night I'll be at the Town of Lloyd Town Board meeting to do a State of the District report and introduce myself to the Town Board. I presented to each of the faculties. Sarah and I work closely with the Highland Educational Foundation, and they are going to be giving out grants, teacher grants, up to $1,000 per grant. And I presume they're going to hand out several grants district-wide. And this is for teachers and staff to kind of think outside the box, come up with unique projects, unique ideas that maybe, things maybe that we came up with a great idea, but we didn't budget for it. Or maybe something that really is a little outside the realm of what the budget is supposed to pay for, but this grant can pay for. So those applications have been explained and sent out. They're due on February 2nd, and the foundation will be announcing the winners at the annual Snowball. I wanted to go over, I sent this to the board, but I also wanted just for the public to know, a lot of times, usually I get these questions once the bad weather comes. How do we decide on a 2-hour delay? How do we decide on a snow day? I did get a lot of high marks for my message, I have to say. So, for 2-hour delays and snow days, very often the discussion starts the day before, because usually you know that something is coming. It's rare that you wake up and, oh my gosh, there's a lot of snow on the ground. So Pete Miller, myself, and along with, and certainly involved Doug, we involved the other administrators, but most of Pete Miller and I kind of talking about the day before. We're talking with other, other districts. Pete does a lot of the lion's share of the work. The morning of, so Pete and I talk sometime between 4:45 and 5 a.m. By that time, Mr. Miller has, he's been monitoring the weather online. He has spoken with neighboring districts. He has spoken with highway supervisors, etc. And even had people out on the roads, driving the roads, so we can see what the conditions are like. Because we are aware that depending on where people live in the district, it might be a little different as to what the conditions are. And Mr. Miller provides me with all that information, and at the end of the day, I make the final decision. But certainly, we go to school 180 days, so it's our job, it's my job, to make sure that we go on the safest 180 days possible. So, last Thursday we did use one snow day because it was still snowing at 7:30. We had called the 2-hour delay. It was still snowing right when we would be starting to send buses out. And even though it did stop about an hour or two later, the roads weren't in great shape. It was very cold. So when it is very cold, the ice does not work as the salt on the roads is not as effective. So we wanted to keep everyone safe, and certainly some of our neighboring districts did also close. It's not an exact science, certainly, but we always try to err on the side of safety, so keep everyone safe and sound. Okay. Certainly, Dean mentioned it, I had a great time at each of the winter concerts, so thank you to the band and chorus teachers for great concerts. Very enjoyable. I just want to throw something out there for the board to consider. Not that I'm trying to give myself less things to do. So January 2nd is the next scheduled board meeting. And I know we might have some business to conduct, I'm not sure. But that is also the day we come back from the break. So it might be something you might want to think about. I don't know if you want to, if that will throw off anybody, but to cancel that meeting because we're going on vacation. There's not a whole lot of business that's going to happen between now and then we come back that Tuesday and there's a board meeting. I don't mind having a board meeting, and presumably it'd be a short board meeting. The next meeting after that is the 16th. So just something to think about.
Yeah, I had that under new business
Oh, okay.
discussion.
Fine.
Yeah, no.
And certainly I'd like to wish the board, the faculty and staff, and the community a Merry Christmas, a happy holiday, and a very happy and healthy New Year.
I just have a question though.
Yes.
3-hour delays. They were throwing them around at one time, and I did see one student use them. I'm just curious
So,
why they
right.
wouldn't.
So we have,
them.
I know that here at Highland, theoretically, we have it scheduled out for a 3-hour delay.
We do.
But in all my years, I've never called a 3-hour delay. A 3-hour delay, you would use that if you're at close to the end of winter and you've used all your days and you don't want to eat a day. Because by the time, especially at the elementary, by the time they get in to school, it's, noon, and you just you're gonna feed them and then turn around and send them home. It's 3-hour delays are used to conserve a day. It's not really an effective teaching day, a 3-hour delay.
And I see a lot of schools don't use them.
Most schools
One
don't
school
use
did.
them.
Liberty.
Is that who it was?
Yeah.
Millbrook used it.
Was that it?
They did.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
Any other questions for? Okay, Sarah?
Well, it's always busy this time of year for lots of different reasons. Just to go back to a little bit to an earlier conversation about the tech committee, just wanted to give you an update on where we are with that. We are going to meet, I forgot the date, early in January? January 8th, okay. January 8th with a representative group from each building, and we're actually going to do it as a full-day PD and really sit down and talk about mission, vision kinds of things, looking at the statement that we created for the whole district and really thinking about how technology fits into that in creating productive global citizens, all of that kind of thing. So that will be the first meeting of the whole committee with the idea that at that we'll start to break down the direction that we want to go, much like you were saying, Mike, earlier, with the direction for the whole district, not just looking at individual buildings, but what do we really need to produce the adult that we want to send out in the world at the end of it. And then so breaking it down into smaller committees to look into, maybe talking to other districts to see what direction they're going. I would love to go on a few visits to see some, when we went to the Tech Fest at BOCES in November, there were some really interesting technologies in some districts that aren't too far away that I'd like to see in action and see. Sometimes when you look at technology, it's hard to decipher what is a kind of a flash in the pan with bells and whistles and what really makes an impact on learning and education for students. So having the opportunity to talk about some of that, and really for our high school teachers to have an understanding of where elementary students are and what they need in the classroom versus having a much more independent learner up at the high school and what that would look like. So that's the first step, with the idea then that we'd meet again. We talked quite a bit last year, and it just never came together, of having a board retreat specifically with that topic in mind, going along the same idea, of really looking at our mission, vision, and seeing where we think we want technology to be, so that when we look at our smart schools money, we come up with a universal plan, and so that every time we talk about technology, whether we're building a budget for next school year or looking at our smart schools money, we can always kind of put that to the test of our overall philosophy or guiding vision for technology. So that's
good stuff. I think if you could, it probably would benefit the committee to say, if every one of these kids came into the classroom with a device, what do teachers need? And I'm kind of more of a 6-12 perspective in that. But are the teachers prepared for that?
right.
Yes
But
or no?
that's part of that whole conversation is really, because we have a lot of devices that are being used up at the high school that are students' personal devices, almost across the board. I think part of that would be a real survey to see how many students are using their own devices and have regular access outside of school, not just in school, connected to our Wi-Fi, how many, for my daughters, they can use their data wherever, you know, it's not a big deal, but for some students, that's a big issue. And so really trying to get an idea of what we need to supply at what level from a school district. So that's part of that conversation. Is that where you're?
It might help, yeah, I mean, it's all good. You've got resources though present, and I'd say it's 100K. Louise might say, well, it's 80, it's not, you know, whatever it is. It's a chunk of money. When I see that, this is what I see. That 100K could put new interactive boards in 29 classrooms. That same money could put a device in every middle school student's hands. Today, there's no need to wait. So that money, there's money there, and you know, what was it put there for? What are we going to do with it? Because, like, I understand school budgeting, so as the budget comes to a close, the year comes to a close, you're going to want to spend that. I want that to be meaningful,
Absolutely.
not a yard sale. I want it to be focused. So right now, I understand supplying lots of different devices and experiences for kids. But we're already in the 21st century. The kids are ready.
Absolutely.
So at what time, you know, when are we gonna jump in?
Well, I think we have jumped in. I mean, I think there's a lot going on in our district, and to me, part of that is really focusing on engagement and problem-based learning, and what you were saying is making sure that teachers understand that a device isn't a substitute for something that they've been doing for the last 20 years. The device is a way to help students think and learn in a different way. So that's what we've been trying to do as we've been starting things in different parts of the district. And I think you're right in saying that we're at that cusp of we're beyond the first adopters. You know, we have a lot of staff as well as students that are ready to just move forward. And I think Steve's presentation was a good example of that. I also think that, like I said, we want to be thoughtful and not just put a device in the student's hands if the teachers aren't ready for it either. And you know, I want to get a better idea of where we are with that.
I don't want to. I feel like these kids are losing out on opportunities because we're not willing to do that, and we're going to hold it because we always talk about PD and mapping and all this, and I understand the teachers might need some training, and I think that some of the central office discussions we'll have in the next few months will put some, you know, help.
Yes,
put a
I think so
framework.
too, and I think we're all trying to go in the same direction. Just, we're talking about different methods of getting that right now, right? So that conversation is happening and ongoing. I've been working on observations of non-tenured teachers. I'm observing every one of our non-tenured teachers. At least one of their observations is in cooperation with the principals. So I've been in lots of classrooms. I'm also helping up at the high school a little bit, so that when Ryan starts, he's not completely inundated. And then to follow up on what Tom was talking about with our opiate and drug initiative, I mentioned that we had met with Vivian to discuss Not My Child. We met again. We are going to have a community night, community forum, February 1st. That will be here at the high school. Tom organized a meeting tomorrow with Town of Lake Police and Christine
Grasso from Rotary.
To really start to get the community part of involvement in that. In our conversation internally as well as with Vivian, we're not ready to show it to the entire student body or from the 7th to 8th graders right now. There was a lot of concerns about just throwing it out there, but what we're going to do on that February 1st day, the presentation will be in the evening, and we're going to encourage as many parents and students to come together as possible. We'll send out special invitations to our athletic teams, as well as to the entire entire community. But during the day, in each of the buildings, we're going to be working in short education sessions. So for instance, at the high school, at the beginning of each period, students will get a 5 to 10 minute presentation. One of those might be of, specific facts about opiates and heroin. Another presentation might be more about connections and who to go to and who to talk to. And so that the conversation is happening in the building to generate some understanding of what is going to happen at the evening event and hopefully to generate more interest in the evening event. The more we talked with Vivian, she kind of stepped back even from saying it needs to be for the entire student body. But she's very enthusiastic about getting it out there. So we're continuing to move forward with that. And with the thought of once we show it to the parents, get a little bit more feedback from them and see where we maybe go in district during the day. But I'm very excited about the education piece during the day on February 1st because we're really going to work on doing that K through 12, age appropriate, of course. But,
you just said you're going to have a showing for the board?
Well, Vivian, I would wanted to, but when I broached that to Vivian, she asked me if we could try to have it in bigger crowds because it's very difficult for her every time she shows it. So I can go back to her.
We don't have our own copy.
Yeah, we don't have our own
Right.
copy. That's, it is hers.
Yeah.
They are working on a website that sounds like it will be live tomorrow or a month from now. It's kind of, it will be available on the website once they get it up and running, but.
Right, I know some of the board members, so I
Right.
just want to make sure that the rest of the board is comfortable with it going to the public. But if you're fine.
Can we see it without her there?
I'll talk to her a little bit more. The one day she came, she was very, it was right before Thanksgiving, and in the conversations I've had with her since, she said it was emotional anyway, so she might feel differently, now that but of course we're
You
going
have
to
somebody else she has
Yeah.
that she works with.
I'll talk to her a little bit more and see if we can maybe do it at one of the January meetings.
Okay, anything else for Sarah? You're good with that?
I'm good.
Any questions for Sarah? Okay, on the Board of Education, new business, the date for our next board meeting is, like Tom had said, is January 2nd, day after New Year. I'm not sure if we'll have a lot on the agenda to cover a productive meeting that evening. Would you like to entertain a meeting on the 9th? We can also, as I get into the superintendent search, that could be our final interviews that evening and board meeting also. Or just go with the 16th. Right now we're scheduled for the 2nd and the 16th.
Would it be the 9th and the 16th, is what we'd be talking
The
about?
9th and the 16th, or if you want to just move both January meetings to the 9th and the 23rd.
No, I'd be unavailable on the 9th, unfortunately. So I'm gonna put a plug in for the 16th.
Did anyone want to do an exec prior to our final interviews? Wasn't that what the tech conversation?
We can. I could be on the 10th if we're available on
Going
the 10th.
into exec after tonight's meeting?
We weren't planning on it.
Yeah, we weren't planning on one this evening. No.
Oh.
Is everyone available on the 10th to do that?
It's a Wednesday then,
It's a Wednesday.
Or you could have your executive session on the 2nd,
Yeah.
and then just have a meeting on the
It's not a Monday,
16th.
I'm good.
We'll leave those dates, we'll do the 2nd and the
So
16th.
the 2nd won't be a regular meeting, it'll just be a.
Yeah, it could be
Is that-
exec.
Okay,
That's fine.
anybody got
Or is
any
it
of
too-
that?
too soon?
Availability? Okay.
We should be okay. I mean, if the board's available,
Okay.
we're good.
Okay.
I'll confirm that, as far as the final interview, but yes. Okay, so
Just
we'll
exec
keep,
session.
plan.
because after the 16th, then we have a 3-week layoff until the February board meeting.
Right,
So we'll do the 2nd and the 16th.
and the second's just an exact, right? Yep.
If there was any, and if there ends up being any appointment that is important to make, we maybe could add one agenda item perhaps.
As far as budget presentation, is there any?
It's too early, but yeah, thank you for,
So we're already, oh, the 2nd, the 16th.
yeah.
Okay, so that's what we'll do on the next two meetings.
And if you can't do the second, Dr. Ford can maybe try the 10th.
We'll, what's available the rest of that week?
It's not a Monday.
We're good, except Monday. All right. Well, for that meeting, if we can't get everybody together on the 2nd, we'll do a board poll and publish a meeting for another date. Anything under new business? Anything under old business? Okay, an update on the superintendent search. We're in our final leg of our superintendent search. The committees, which included a lot of school staff, both administrators, support staff, teachers, etc., and community members. First of all, I want to thank all those individuals for being here for 5 hours. I think it was 4.5, 5 hours. And I think the board got a lot of input from each and every one of the members of that committee to kind of give us some guidance in the direction that we would move forward. So we're at the last leg, and hopefully the first week in January we'll be able to do final interviews, and if that all goes well, we'll be able to have a decision made shortly thereafter. That's where we are right now. I think we're right on target with our original timeline, starting back in September and moving forward. Again, thank you for everyone's input and the time spent on that committee. Does anyone have any questions?
Elise, could you just confirm with your office and everything that we are gonna have an audit committee meeting on the 16th?
I was just gonna announce that.
Yeah, well, just so.
5 o'clock, an hour before
It
the
is,
executive
sure,
session.
okay.
Yes,
In
thank
case
you.
they wanted to do anything else early, okay, thank you.
Not that it matters, but I also think there'll be a support services meeting on January 23rd. If any of you are on that committee, you want to pencil that in, checking availability.
Okay, under miscellaneous, as you can see there, there is an estate that's being probated, and we are, Highland School, Central School District has been included in that probate, so once we get further information, when it's finally probated to the courts, we'll be notified and we'll act on that, and then we'll make the announcement where we are with that. Okay. Everybody good with that? Okay, I'll open the meeting up to public comment.
Thanks for staying, everybody. Thank you.
Happy holidays,
Merry
everybody.
Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Yeah.
No.
All right, no public comment. Motion to adjourn.
Sounds nice.
By Heather, second by Sue. I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, and a safe, healthy, Happy New Year. Thank you.
Enjoy this week, everybody.
No candy canes, no.
No.
No, Thank you. Mr. Fred, when they were giving out the candy.
No, they're-